My name is Kanak, and I'm 35 years old. I've always dreamed of building my perfect home, a place where I can raise my family and create lifelong memories. For years, I've been saving and planning, and finally, the day had arrived to turn my vision into reality. I had found the perfect plot of land, designed the perfect house, and hired the perfect contractor. As I stood on the empty plot, I felt a sense of excitement and anticipation. This was it, the start of a new chapter in my life. I had always imagined myself living in a beautiful, spacious home with a big backyard and a porch where I could watch the sunset. Now, it was all coming together. I had spent countless hours designing every detail of my dream home, from the layout of the rooms to the color of the walls. I had chosen the perfect materials, the perfect fixtures, and the perfect appliances. I had thought of everything, or so I thought. I hired a contractor, a man with a good reputation and a portfolio of impressive projects. He seemed professional, knowledgeable, and enthusiastic about my project. We had discussed every aspect of the build, and I had been impressed with his attention to detail and his ideas. The contractor's name was Jack, and he had been in the business for over a decade. He had built homes for some of the wealthiest people in the city, and I felt confident that he was the right man for the job. We had signed the contract and the work was supposed to start immediately. As I looked at the empty plot, I felt a sense of pride and accomplishment. I had worked hard for this moment, and I was ready to see my dream take shape. I had a clear vision of what I wanted, and I was confident that Jack would deliver. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into months. Jack and his team would come and go, working on the foundation, the walls, and the roof. I would visit the site regularly, checking on the progress and making sure that everything was going according to plan. At first, everything seemed fine. The work was being done, and the house was starting to take shape. But as time went on, I began to notice small delays and excuses. Jack would promise to fix things, but they wouldn't get fixed. He would blame the weather, the suppliers, or his workers, but I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was off. I tried to brush it off, thinking that maybe I was just being paranoid. After all, Jack was a professional, and I had trusted him with my dream project. But the doubts lingered, and I couldn't help but wonder if I had made a mistake. As I stood on the plot, looking at the half-built house, I felt a sense of unease. Something didn't feel right, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it. I had a feeling that my dream home was about to become a nightmare, and I had no idea what was coming next. I met Jack at a coffee shop in the city. He was supposed to be one of the best contractors in town, and I was eager to hear his pitch. He walked in, confident and friendly, with a smile that put me at ease. "Hey Kanak, thanks for meeting me," he said, extending his hand. "I'm Jack, and I'll be working on your project." We sat down, and Jack pulled out a folder filled with designs and plans. "So tell me about your vision for this house," he said, his eyes locked on mine. I explained my ideas, and Jack listened intently, nodding along. When I finished, he launched into a passionate speech about how he could bring my vision to life. "I understand exactly what you're looking for, Kanak," he said. "I've built homes for some of the most discerning clients in the city, and I know what it takes to make a house a home." He showed me pictures of his previous work, and I was impressed. The homes were beautiful, with clean lines and elegant designs. "I'll make sure to incorporate all of your ideas into the design," Jack said. "But I also want to bring my own expertise to the table. I've worked with many clients, and I know what works and what doesn't." He pulled out a detailed plan, complete with timelines and budgets. "Here's what I propose," he said. "We'll start with the foundation and then move on to the framing. We'll work closely with you to ensure that every detail is perfect." I was impressed with Jack's professionalism and attention to detail. He seemed like a man who knew what he was doing, and I felt confident that he could deliver. "I'm sold," I said, extending my hand. "Let's do this." Jack smiled and shook my hand. "I'm glad you're on board, Kanak. I'll get started on the paperwork and we can finalize the details." We spent the next hour discussing the finer points of the project, from the type of flooring to the design of the cabinets. Jack was knowledgeable and enthusiastic, and I felt like I was in good hands. As we parted ways, Jack handed me a business card. "If you have any questions or concerns, don't hesitate to call," he said. "I'm always here to help." I watched him walk out of the coffee shop, feeling a sense of excitement about the project. I was looking forward to seeing my dream home take shape. Over the next few days, Jack sent me regular updates on the project's progress. He was diligent about responding to my questions and concerns, and I felt like we were on the same page. The contract arrived, and I reviewed it carefully. Everything seemed in order, and I signed the document without hesitation. I was ready to start building my dream home, and I was confident that Jack was the right man for the job. The construction was supposed to start immediately, but weeks went by, and I didn't see much progress. I would call Jack and he would assure me that everything was moving forward, but when I visited the site, I wouldn't see anyone working. "Hey, Kanak, I'm sorry about the delay," Jack said one day over the phone. "We've been having some issues with the supplier. They're running behind schedule and we can't start without the materials." I understood that delays happen, so I gave Jack the benefit of the doubt. But as the weeks turned into months, I started to get frustrated. The site was still empty and Jack's excuses were becoming more and more creative. "We're having some issues with the permits," he said another day. "The city is taking longer than expected to approve the plans." I offered to help, but Jack assured me that he had everything under control. "Don't worry, Kanak. I've been doing this for years. I know how to navigate the system." But as the delays continued, I started to get suspicious. I would visit the site and there would be no one there. I would call Jack and he wouldn't answer. I started to feel like I was being played. One day, I decided to visit the supplier myself. I drove to the warehouse, and when I got there, I asked to speak to someone about the materials for my project. The woman at the desk checked the computer and told me that there was no record of my project. "I'm sorry, sir," she said. "We don't have any orders for a project with that address." I felt a knot in my stomach. Something wasn't right. I called Jack, but he didn't answer. I left a message asking him to call me back. When he finally called, I confronted him about what I had discovered. "Jack, I went to the supplier and they said they don't have any record of my project," I said. "What's going on?" Jack hesitated, and for a moment I thought I heard a hint of guilt in his voice. "Let me look into it, Kanak," he said. "I'll get back to you soon." But I knew that something was wrong. The excuses, the delays, the empty promises, it all added up to one thing. Jack was not doing his job. And I was starting to wonder if he ever had any intention of building my dream home. I demanded answers, but Jack kept stalling. "I'll get to the bottom of it, Kanak," he said. "Just give me some time." Time was something I didn't have. I had invested my savings into this project, and I was starting to feel like I was losing everything. I knew I had to take action, but I wasn't sure what to do next. As the days went by, the silence from Jack's end was deafening. I would call, and he wouldn't answer. I would leave messages, and he wouldn't respond. It was like he had vanished into thin air, taking my money and my dream home with him. I was left with a sense of uncertainty, wondering what would happen next. Would Jack come through and deliver on his promises, or would I be left with nothing but a pile of debt and a broken dream? The thought sent a chill down my spine, and I knew I had to do something. But what? The construction was underway, and I thought everything was going according to plan. But one day, Jack called me with a surprise. "Kanak, we need to talk about the budget," he said. "The costs are adding up faster than we anticipated. We need more money to finish the project." I was taken aback. We had agreed on a price, and I had paid according to the contract. "What do you mean?" I asked. "We discussed the budget, and I thought we were good." I know, Jack said. "But things have changed. The prices of materials have gone up, and we need to adjust the budget accordingly." I didn't like the sound of this. "How much more money are we talking about?" I asked. "Around 20% more," Jack said. "It's not a big deal, considering the quality of work we're doing." I was shocked. 20% more was a significant amount of money. "I don't know if I can afford that," I said. "You have to," Jack said. "If you don't, the project will be delayed, and it will cost you even more in the long run." I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to trust Jack and pay the extra money, but another part of me was suspicious. Why was this coming up now? Why hadn't Jack anticipated these costs earlier? "Let me think about it," I said. "I'll get back to you soon." Jack agreed, but I could sense a hint of urgency in his voice. "Kanak, We need to resolve this soon. The project can't wait." I hung up the phone, feeling uneasy. Something didn't feel right. I started to review the contract, looking for any clues about what was happening. When I saw the fine print, my heart sank. There were clauses that I hadn't noticed before, clauses that seemed to favor Jack's company. I felt a surge of anger. Had Jack been playing me all along? Was this just a way for him to get more money out of me? I decided to do some research. I looked up Jack's company online, reading reviews and testimonials from previous clients. What I found shocked me. There were several complaints about Jack's company, complaints about unexpected costs and delays. I realized that I wasn't alone. Other people had been in my shoes, and they had been taken advantage of. I felt a sense of determination. I would not let Jack get away with this. I would fight for my rights, and I would make sure that Jack's company didn't take advantage of anyone else. But for now I had to decide what to do next. Would I pay the extra money, or would I stand my ground? The decision would change the course of my life forever. I had been warning signs along the way, but I had chosen to ignore them. I had trusted Jack and I had given him my money, but now I realized that I had made a grave mistake. It started with small things. Jack would stop responding to my calls, or he would send me vague messages about the project's progress. I would visit the site and there would be no one working. I would ask Jack about the delays and he would give me excuses. But as time went on, the excuses stopped. Jack stopped responding to my calls and messages altogether. I would visit the site and it would be abandoned. I would see workers standing around, doing nothing. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know what. I tried to contact Jack, but he was nowhere to be found. I went to his office and it was closed. I talked to his employees, and they seemed just as confused as I was. One of them told me that Jack had taken the money and run. "He's been doing this for years," the employee said. "He finds people who trust him, takes their money, and then disappears." I couldn't believe it. I had given Jack my life savings, and he had taken it all. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. I reported Jack to the authorities, but they told me that it would take time to investigate. Time was something I didn't have. I had lost my money, and I had lost my dream home. I decided to take matters into my own hands. I started searching for Jack, trying to track him down. I talked to his acquaintances, his friends, and his family members. But no one seemed to know where he was. As the days turned into weeks, I became more and more desperate. I had lost everything, and I didn't know how I would recover. I had put my trust in Jack, and he had betrayed me. I started to realize that I wasn't alone. There were others who had been affected by Jack's actions. I met with them and we shared our stories. We were all angry and we were all hurt. We decided to take action. We started a campaign to expose Jack's company and warn others about his tactics. We posted about it on social media and we shared our experiences with others. Slowly but surely, people started to listen. They started to realize that Jack's company was not what it seemed. They started to see the truth. But for me, it was too late. I had lost my money, and I had lost my dream home. I was left with nothing but the memories of what could have been. I vowed to never trust anyone again. I vowed to always be vigilant, to always do my research. I would not let what happened to me happen to others. As I looked back on the experience, I realized that I had learned a valuable lesson. Trust no one and always verify. It was a hard lesson to learn, but it was one that I would never forget. The experience had changed me. I was no longer the same person who had trusted Jack with my money. I was now more cautious, more skeptical, but I was also more determined. I was determined to rebuild my life, to start over. I would not let Jack's betrayal define me. I would rise above it and I would come out stronger on the other side. I took a deep breath and I started to move forward. I would not let the past hold me back. I would look to the future, and I would build a new life, a life that would be better than the one I had lost. I stared at the half-built house, the walls and beams a constant reminder of my failed dream. I couldn't believe it had come to this. The contractor Jack had taken my money and disappeared. I was left with nothing but a pile of debt and a construction site that seemed to mock me. I thought back to the day I had signed the contract with Jack. I had been so excited, so full of hope. I had envisioned a beautiful home, a place where I could raise my family and create lifelong memories. But now it all seemed like a distant memory, a fleeting dream that had vanished into thin air. I walked around the site, taking in the silence. The workers were gone, the tools and equipment abandoned. It was as if the project had been abandoned, left to rot. I felt a surge of anger and frustration. How could Jack do this to me? How could he take my money and disappear? I thought about all the times I had trusted Jack, all the times I had given him the benefit of the doubt. I had believed in him and he had let me down. I felt like I had been blind, like I had ignored the warning signs. I started to wonder if I would ever see my money again. Would Jack ever be held accountable for his actions? I didn't know, but I knew I had to try. I couldn't just sit back and do nothing. I took out my phone and started dialing numbers. I called the authorities, the Contractors Association, anyone who might be able to help me. I was determined to get to the bottom of this, to find out what had happened to my money. As I talked to the authorities, I realized that I wasn't alone. There were others who had been affected by Jack's actions. They had also given him their money and he had taken it and disappeared. I felt a sense of solidarity with these people. We were all in this together and we would fight for justice. We would make sure that Jack paid for what he had done. I hung up the phone, feeling a sense of determination. I would not give up. I would fight for my rights, for my money. I would make sure that Jack didn't get away with this. I looked at the half-built house again, and I felt a sense of resolve. I would rebuild my life and I would make sure that Jack didn't destroy me. I would rise above this and I would come out stronger on the other side. The question was, where would I start? How would I begin to rebuild my life? I didn't know, but I knew I had to take the first step. I would start by finding out more about Jack's company, about his business practices. I would dig deep and I would uncover the truth. I took a deep breath and I started to walk away from the construction site. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I was ready to face whatever came next. I was ready to fight. I faced a maze of bureaucratic red tape. Each step forward met with resistance. The authorities seemed overwhelmed, and the Contractors Association claimed they couldn't intervene. I felt like I was shouting into the void, my voice echoing off the walls but not being heard. I tried to stay focused, to keep my eyes on the prize. I wanted my money back and I wanted Jack to be held accountable, but with each passing day, it seemed like a distant dream. The obstacles piled up, and I felt like I was drowning in a sea of paperwork and excuses. I met with other victims, people who had also been affected by Jack's actions. We shared our stories and our anger and frustration grew. We decided to band together, to fight for justice as a group. Our determination grew with each passing day, and we vowed to see this through to the end. But the challenges persisted. We faced opposition from the authorities, who seemed more interested in protecting Jack than in helping us. We faced skepticism from others, who thought we were just a bunch of foolish people who had gotten ourselves into this mess. We faced financial struggles as the cost of pursuing justice mounted. Despite it all, we refused to give up. We kept pushing forward, driven by our determination to see justice served. We gathered evidence, we filed complaints, and we made our voices heard. And slowly but surely, things started to move. The authorities began to take notice, and Jack's company started to come under scrutiny. It was a small victory, but it was enough to keep us going. We knew we still had a long way to go, but we were determined to see it through. We would fight for our rights, for our money, and for justice. We would not rest until Jack was held accountable for his actions. The journey was far from over, but we were ready for it. We were ready to face whatever challenges came our way, to overcome any obstacle, and to fight for what was rightfully ours. We would not be silenced, we would not be defeated. We would rise up and we would demand justice. The question was, what would happen next? Would we succeed in our quest for justice, or would we hit another roadblock? Only time would tell, but one thing was certain. We would not give up. We would keep fighting no matter what. I knew I had to do something. I couldn't just sit back and let Jack get away with what he had done. I started to think about my options, about what I could do to take action. I considered going to the authorities, but I wasn't sure if they would take me seriously. I thought about talking to a lawyer, but I wasn't sure if I could afford one. As I weighed my options, I realized that I had to take matters into my own hands. I couldn't wait for someone else to fix the problem. I started to research, to learn more about Jack's company and about the law. I talked to other people who had been affected by Jack's actions, and I started to build a case. I knew it wouldn't be easy. I knew that Jack would fight back, that he would try to discredit me and to silence me. But I was determined to see this through. I was determined to expose Jack for what he was, and to get my money back. I started to gather evidence, to document everything that had happened. I took pictures of the construction site, and I kept records of all my conversations with Jack. I talked to witnesses and I gathered testimonials from other people who had been affected. As I worked on building my case, I realized that I wasn't just fighting for myself. I was fighting for all the people who had been taken advantage of by Jack. I was fighting for justice, and I was determined to win. I knew that Jack would try to intimidate me, to make me back down, but I was ready for him. I was ready to stand up for myself and to stand up for what was right. I was ready to take action, and I was determined to see it through. The question was, what would happen next? Would Jack try to settle, or would he fight back? Would I be able to get my money back, or would I lose everything? I didn't know, but I was ready to face whatever came next. I was ready to take control of my life and to fight for what was rightfully mine. I took a deep breath, and I started to make my move. I would not be silenced, and I would not be defeated. I would fight for justice, and I would fight for my rights. I would take action, and I would see this through to the end. If you're a homeowner who's been affected by a contractor's dishonest practices, don't wait any longer to take action. Gather all your documents, photos, and evidence and start building your case. Reach out to local authorities, consumer protection agencies, or seek legal counsel to understand your options. Share your story with others, and let's build a community of support and advocacy. Together, we can make a difference and ensure that contractors are held accountable for their actions. Subscribe to our channel for more updates, tips, and stories about navigating the complexities of home construction and renovation. Hit the notification bell to stay informed and join the conversation by commenting below. Let's work together to protect homeowners and promote transparency in the construction industry. If you know someone who's been affected by a similar situation, tag them in the comments and encourage them to share their story. Let's build a movement and demand better from our contractors and builders. Together we can create positive change and ensure that our homes are built with integrity and honesty. Don't forget to like and share this video, and we'll see you in the next one. This is the end of my story. Thank you for watching, and if you like this kind of content, kindly leave us a like, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. Thank you.